I'm going to read to you guys another paper that I wrote in 2022 about Latinas and black men in the United States. Racism is one of the huge contributors to the discrimination and violence that these two groups continuously face. The first essay that we're going to be talking about is The Myth of Latin Women. I just met a girl named Maria, which is written by Judith Ortiz Cofer, a Puerto Rican woman describing the discrimination that she has faced as a Latina in the United States. The second essay is Just Walk On By, is written by Brett Staples, who recalls the hardships that he has faced in the United States as a black man. Staples and Kofers are both educated writers and victims of racist stereotypes. However, due to their cultural identities and their gender, the issues they face are different. The first difference between Kofer and Staples is their cultural identities. Kofer is an immigrant who experiences cultural schizophrenia in the United States, where they link colors of red and scarlet to vulgarity and maturity, preferring light pinks for girls. They often judge Latinas for embracing bold and vibrant colors and lots of jewelry. However, colors do not have a gender, nor do they say anything bad or imply that a person is sexual in nature. But for women of Latin America, it is custom for mothers who had grown up on tropical islands where the natural environment was a riot of primary colors to encourage and influence their daughters when it came to clothes and color choices. On tropical islands, showing your skin was a normal way of keeping cool and looking sexy if you wanted to, but that wasn't like the point. Latinas are also protected by traditions and morals created by the Spanish/Catholic systems of morality and machismo, whose main rule was you may look at my sister, but if you touch her, I will kill you, right? While men were allowed to admire women in the form of piropos, erotically charged street poems, they were never to cross into obscenity, so if a man had wronged her, typically the family would create a circle of safety around her, and it is part of the reason that women felt safer and freer to dress how they choose. However, those protections do not extend into the United States. Outside of Kofer's home, in schools and public places, she and other Latinas are judged and criticized by their peers and her teachers/nuns. She states in her essay, the difference was and is cultural, yet I often felt humiliated when I appeared at an American friend's party wearing a dress more suitable to a semi-formal than a playroom birthday celebration. While she was in school, the Puerto Rican girls were made to feel like they were bad or inappropriate by a bunch of judgmental white nuns and students, implying that they were easy because of how they dressed, which is gross. In Puerto Rico, the same outfits would not even raise an eye nor prompt such behavior from adults or children because color, fun jewelry, skirts, and short dresses are part of the culture, and yet the words from those peers stuck with Kofer. The idea that the way she was raised and how she was dressed was too mature and flashy. Although they both face discrimination based on their cultures, they come from different backgrounds, Kofer and Staples, right? That affect their worldview. As for Brent Staples, an African American who grew up in Chester, Pennsylvania, a small industrial town in the 1960s, there was a lot of gang violence, street knifings, and murders. Many myths follow black men, from being extra violent and intimidating to them being sexual predators. Young boys, teenagers, and young men are seen as thugs and criminals rather than what they are, which is children. Society and other men teach them that they need to be tough guys, intimidating, unaware of their emotions, besides anger, typically to be fighters. Not all men fall into those stereotypes, nor should they believe that is the only option they have. They deserve better than that. And he is not alone with losing many people because of it. Staples tells us that, as a boy, I saw countless tough guys locked away. I have since buried several too. They were babies, really, all gone down in episodes of bravado, played out in the streets. I came to doubt the virtues of intimidation. I choose, perhaps even unconsciously, to remain a shadow, timid but a survivor. Staples Brent, Just Walk On By. The reason it has not gone better, even decades later, is due to the systems we are in that often profit off the idea that black men are dangerous, and that is a huge systemic issue that has led to many incarcerated and dead boys and men. They are also victims that face a similar form of racist stereotypes. In this case, they are believed to be uneducated. Kofer's most memorable one was at her poetry reading. Judith Ortiz Kofer talks about the types of myths facing Latina women in the United States. The first is the domestic Maria the housemaid or countergirl. She talks about how working as domestics, waitresses, and at factories are some of the only available jobs for people and women who speak little English and have few other skills. But the stereotype of the funny maid mispronouncing words and cooking up a spicy storm has been kept alive by the media, much like the mammy trope that continues to plague black women. So when Kofor had her first public poetry reading in Miami at a restaurant where older women assumed she was a waiter rather than one of the published authors who would be reading at the event, she got upset. She thought the women had called her over to her table because she wanted Kofor's autograph and a copy of her new published work. Instead, the woman had fallen back on stereotypes, saw her in her notebook, and deemed her a waitress. She wrote about the event saying, "I know it was an intentional act of cruelty, yet all of the good things that happened later, I remember that scene most clearly. There are thousands of Latinas without the privilege of an education or the entries into society that I have. For them, life is a constant struggle against the misconceptions perpetuated by the myth of the Latina. As a Latina woman who was educated, she took offense to it, both for the many Latinas who did not have the privileges that she had. She took the doubt of her abilities as a challenge. She always did, and that day she read looking at that woman. That woman was embarrassed, but allowed Kofor to punish her in that way, both with the intensity of her words and the eye contact as she spoke.